Welcome back. And now to the war with Iran. U.S. military officials confirmed that at least 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in the conflict. This as strikes between the U.S. and Iran continue to rock the region. In fact, this video circulating online appears to show the moment Iranian missiles hit the airbase in Jordan. Now, the Pentagon has released the identities and photos of the 2 soldiers who died. They are 19-year-old Army Private Isabella Gonzalez of Texas and 25-year-old First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan of Hawaii. A 3rd service member is still listed as missing in Jordan. Another was killed in northern Iraq during the detonation of an Iranian drone. And these words of warning for Iran from the president a short time ago. He posted on Truth Social saying every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. Let's begin our coverage with Mark Cancian, a retired U.S. Marine Corps colonel and a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, thank you for your time today. So how does the death of more U.S. soldiers change the calculus of this war?
Well, on one level, there's a political reaction. That is that the United States is very sensitive to casualties. Each one of them is some family's tragedy, and that heightens awareness of the war. And for people who aren't very supportive, I think it increases their opposition. On the other hand, by the standards of historical wars and even U.S. wars, casualties have been extremely low. The United States has worked hard to keep those casualties low despite Iranian efforts to inflict casualties. So from that perspective, the United States has been quite fortunate, although if the war continues, casualties will inevitably continue.
Yeah. And what would you say has been the impact of all of this on our Gulf allies?
Well, the Gulf allies very much want the war to end. They want to open shipping through the strait. They want to get their oil out. They want to get goods and services in because they are dependent on food and other commodities coming in. So they very much would like to see this over. On the other hand, Iran is not letting them get away. Iran keeps attacking them and trying to drive a wedge between the United States and its Gulf ally.
All right, Colonel Mark Cancian, thank you for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Fab.
Let's go live now to the White House and CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Hey, Weijia, the president had a strong warning for Iran today, but is there any path back to diplomacy at this point?
Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that there are continuing direct efforts to try to reach some sort of compromise with Iran. He told reporters this before he left for an overseas trip to the Philippines. And he talked at length about how Iran really has to want to make a deal, has to want to do the right thing. So even though there was an acknowledgement that the memorandum of understanding that the 2 sides were working off of, which was a framework to try to get to a permanent peace deal, even though Rubio acknowledged that Iran is not complying with that, and certainly we are watching as the 2 sides continue to trade attacks at each other, there is still some sense of optimism, not only from Rubio, but the president himself said recently that he still believes a permanent peace deal is possible. It's interesting, Mugo, Rubio also said that the reason why there's this most recent escalation is because of aggression in the Strait of Hormuz, which was a bit of a warning to Iran to stop firing at commercial vessels trying to get through there. Of course, it should be noted that the strait was completely open before the U.S. struck Iran back in February, which launched this war.
And Weijia, what else are we learning from the president? Does he have a trip or event coming up?
We just heard from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, that tomorrow President Trump will be attending the dignified transfers for the 3 service members who were killed over the weekend. Now that number tragically is up to 17 service members who have died since this conflict in Iran started. So we know that he plans to attend that very solemn transfer tomorrow at Dover Air Force Base. We also know that he has recently not only talked about the war in Iran extensively, but also about that new plane for future trips that you asked about, because he said it's going to be maxed out for security purposes, and he didn't elaborate on what new security enhancements will be added, but just the fact that he says it will be sent away in about a month to get even more does highlight the point that right now it is lacking everything that it could have to be maxed out in terms of security. Of course, that was a concern when he started using this Qatari jet and then stopped abruptly and got on an old Air Force One when he returned recently from a trip abroad. Mugo.
Okay, Weijia Jiang at the White House for us. Thank you so much.